morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is. Welcome to Living Truthfully, episode 64. And if you're just joining us, let me tell you, we are on fire. We are listening to the story of Mr. Solomon Gitau. And he's telling us a story about his journey as an alcoholic. And I don't know, we left this story at a place where I imagine must be rock bottom. I imagine it must be rock bottom. Hey, from uptown boy living and growing up in Raptor Road, Konso, Apa, now finally in a bed made out of cardboard in St. Teresa's Clinic in Isli. Alcohol imekwisha saa hiyo. Imevaporate.
Imevaporate because you're looking at the veranda here. You have never slept outside. I told you previously, I only thought that it's mad guys who sleep on the street. But again, you have no choice. Ishapita saa 5 usiku, you don't have any money, you don't have anywhere to go. And so the only thing is to tell the guy, me asleep that side near the wall. But yeah, at least you keep yourself out of the way of traffic in case a car jumps over the curb. And this guy, he's used to it. He gives me a sack. I put my feet into it. He gives me a black sheet of paper to cover my face. I cover my face, and as soon as my head, I was drunk, so, even though I've sobered kiasi, but as soon as my head hit the pavement, sleep took over. And kidogo, it's 5:30, and there's a watchman screaming in your ears and kicking you guys out of the place. Tokeni hapa sio kwa mama yenu, get off the veranda, and you wake up and realize that it's 5:30. Ay, sawa. You get off the veranda. Aya. Now, at that time, I want to tell you, the addict, the devil really knows how to trap guys. At that time, at 5:30, one thing I realized is as soon as you get up, the Karobo places open at 5:45. So the 15 minutes.
What time did they brew it?
This thing can be brewed even in the night. These are places, these guys are out to make money. So the Karobo place opens at 5:45. So the guy who gets out of his sack and has something to buy Karobo, there's even incentive. The first 10 guys in the Karobo place wakinunua ya shilingi 8 wanachotewa kikombe ingine. So there's plus incentive, which keeps guys going there.
Bogoff, buy one, get one free.
Yeah, yes. for the first 10. Kila asubuhi.
Imagine
so
that.
what will make guys not be doing their kila siku. So it was my first night in the street. And of course, you pretend, it was a very tough experience. But kidogo, after a few more nights in the lodging, I kind of figured it wasn't so bad. And, one time when money was little, I decided not to pay again for lodging. I slept in the street. You just make sure you buy a guy of the street, since you don't have your own stuff to cover yourself. You just make sure you buy a guy of the street something and he'll lend you some of his stuff. And it started becoming now a few days in the street, a few days lodging. At the middle of 1997, around the middle of 1997, I became a full-fledged street person. I stopped pretensions at lodging. I stopped going, to a lodging, and now it was just drink. And in the evening, you go to sleep in the street. You quickly get very dirty. And so that means you cannot go to town or to hustle anywhere else. So you have to find. I wasn't brought up and taught to beg. I always know you have to find your own ways to make your shilling. So I had to find a way to make a living on the streets. And a friend of mine living there just asked me, hey, you have 20 bob? I said, yeah, that's 20. 20 bob, bought a sack. And with this sack, I went and opened my own garbage collection company. I became a one-man garbage collector in Isili. Basically, it's not a hard job. What happens is, the garbage collection in those days was not, even now, it's not really sorted out upande kama za Isili. So, chokoras, you just go with your sack, you knock on somebody's door, they give you takataka for a certain amount. So for me, I would knock on doors, somebody gives me some rubbish for 5 bob, another one for 10 bob, another one 5 bob EV. By the time I fill the sack, I have about 50 bob. Then you hepa na uko in the estate with city council and you find a place to dump that rubbish. Now the dumping part is the part you be careful. Because now you're a street guy. And if by bad luck Kanjo catches you, you'll be beaten within an inch of your life. You know, nobody takes street guys to the cop station. You just
it's a waste of time. There's no money.
And dicker them properly. So once you've dumped the rubbish, you have 50 bob, go back to the Karobo place. And now with your 50 bob, I told you, you get 24 shillings, you've got your alcohol, 6 shillings, you've got your cigarettes. So you have 20 bob left. Now this 20 bob, you have to figure out how to eat. I quickly found out a way. With 10 shillings, armed with 10 shillings, you can go to the back of some 2 hotels, Sana is Somali, and you rummage in the rubbish or among the rubbish that you are throwing out. You find those, those karatasis that used to cost 10 bob, those green paper bags. Yeah, you shake out one and you present it at the back of a restaurant with 10 bob. Now they've got this bin where they throw in all the waste food. So whether guys were eating fish, whether guys were eating burger, whether guys were eating chapo, whatever it's being eaten, they empty that for you into your paper bag. And you walk out with your paper bag. Go find a place to sit. Unatoa maganda ya ndimu, unatoa ya ndizi, kama kuna chupa ilivunjikia hapo ndani. And you make a meal of what is left. Once you have eaten, and being enterprising, you don't want your 10 bob just going to waste kabisa. You also find some 2 little paper bags and repackage at least 4 to small packs. These ones you will sell to your fellow guys in the streets for 5 bob. Na utasikia hata mtu hapo akisema na ujue mimi sikulagi chakula ina nyama.
I'm not even laughing for Baya. It's funny.
It's all right. It's the way. It's just I'm giving you a peek into that life.
My goodness.
So here, this meat you're talking about, this is the stuff that somebody gnawed on and chewed on and put their saliva all over, and now they couldn't eat it, and that's what the guys are saying. You can't eat meat you can't eat food
without meat.
So anyway. So you once you sell these other 4, you got an extra 20 bob, una shilingi 10 ya kuamkia asubuhi, and life goes on. And I got into that life. And it became my normal. Now I want you to notice one thing. I have moved the budget from 100 to 50 bob.
And even that 50 can make you another 20.
Exactly. This, since there was an initial investment of 10, let's just say it brings in
10.
Yeah. So you'll still have 50, 60 shillings at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You see, that slide from some expensive alcohol to where you are at that point. That slide, many guys who are on that side, they are still there in the expensive alcohol. If they don't seek help, I hope my story will help them not to reach the part I am going to now. So anyway, tukaendelea, and you get into this grind, it becomes the everyday thing. And 1997 Christmas, I spent in the streets.
Where is your family at this time? Where are your folks? Do you have siblings? Where are they?
Okay, I have parents, but they live on this other side of town. You know very well. There's a social divide, but Moya Avenue this side and Moya Avenue the other side. There are some folks who don't cross Moya Avenue down.
So they don't look for you? They don't
look for me, because one of the things is, me am a guy who's running away from home. Mapema. Me am a guy who in secondary school I would take off from home for
a couple of days.
The kind of guy, as I told you, when I started distancing myself from people, I just distance, and that's it. So my family kind of just let it be. So there's nobody, there's nobody who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Probably in their minds, they think this guy is just outside there drinking himself, and when he gets serious in life, he'll come back. Where I am at, I have slid into that system. Somehow when you've got until down there, you have no more responsibilities. All you do is maintain your daily high. And you completely refuse even to think of the situation you're in. And I maintained that. 97 Christmas I was there. 98 New Year I was there. 90... the whole of that year, 99, I was there. In fact, when things like the bomb blast happened, I was still in the streets. And I continued to maintain that until in 1999. Somewhere in that year, I started reflecting upon my life. Somewhere in that year, I started thinking about why am I in this kind of situation?
You've been in the streets for how long? At this point?
From mid-97, now this is 99 there.
So at least 2 years.
Yeah. And you start thinking about, this 2 years and something, and you start thinking about why is this going on? But at some point also, I came to realize, I'm not going to get out of this life. I couldn't see a way out. Now, life in the streets is cheap. Every day, I want to tell you, Amani, there's a ritual that happens in the streets. Every single day when you wake up, the place we were living in, just guys arranged in a sack on a shop front. And every day you wake up, and one of the rituals you do is you shake the sack that's next to you. If it moves, it's alive. If it doesn't move, guy died. And actually, sometimes you even envy the guy because, for him, his torments are over. And for you are just beginning. But what you do is, if he's dead, one guy just grabs the side of the head and the other one grabs the side of the feet, and you move that sack to the main road where the city council can get and dispose of it, because you don't want to spoil where you are staying. I'm really, do you know where the old bus station is?
Hold on. I don't think I've heard you correctly.
Yes.
You're saying every day in the morning, you wake up.
You
have a ritual.
Life is cheap. Okay, let me fafanua that a bit. In the streets, for as much as you can argue about food, most everybody is high. Okay? You need to be high to sleep on those streets. So you could have had an argument about food, that kind of food that I was telling you that we get. And a guy, he's high on his dope or whatever he's high on. You don't have doors in the streets. A guy will simply just check the sack in which you are and shove a knife into there. You have considered a guy who probably drops a rock on your head in the night. A street person's life is cheap. And nobody cares about it. So every morning, you first shake the sack that's next to you. If it moves, it's alive. If it doesn't, it's dead. And if it's dead, you cannot afford to be kicked off your shop front because you left a dead body there when the shop owners come. So you first move it to the main road, to the tarmac road. We used to live. I don't know if you know where the old bus depot at ECD was.
It is. I know.
Directly opposite. And even today, I still pass by sometimes just to see the spot that was mine.
Wow.
We lived directly opposite. Ours was like a place we called Kileleshwa. Why? Due to social hang-ups. Ours had an overhang. You know, this to shop fronts with an overhang.
Yeah,
so,
like
if
roof,
it rains, so if it rains, hamtanyeshewa, so you're in Kileleshwa. There was also a Kalon single tree that grew somewhere there. Kanjo has long taken it out, but there was a Kalon single tree, so we're in the leafy suburbs. Just things you comfort yourself with when you're there. Anyway, that's one of the things. Death also comes through disease. The vagaries of weather. The sicknesses. Seen a guy drinking Karobo, his liver fails or other body organs fail, and so death is not, it's not a big event. It happens. As you get dirty like this, one of the things you must realize, Amani, do you know how hard it is for a chokora to get a drink of water? Here I'm not speaking about a small child. I'm not speaking about a woman chokora. I'm speaking about an adult male chokora. Do you know how hard it is for them even to get a drink of water? No one wants to hear you. You are a man who wants to hear you. You approach whether man or woman. If you as a male adult chokora, you approach a woman, the first thing she instinctively grabs her bag and veers off into a different direction. Any man you approach starts squaring his shoulders and starts spoiling for a fight because they already think bad about you. So you can't turn up at a restaurant and ask for a drink of water. You'll be told kwenda because society holds you in at a contempt because of the way you physically appear. So if a chokora cannot get water to drink, sometimes we'll break guys' water pipes. You find a leaking pipe somewhere, masaa zingine you vunja water pipe somewhere. So if a chokora can't get water to drink, where do you think they will get the water to bathe? So you stay in those streets. A month goes by. 2 months go by. 3 months go by. You have bred hair lice. You have bred lice on your clothes. The lice has become so much that no matter how intoxicated you are unable to sleep. Unajikuna, you play Gitau on your ribs throughout the night because you are unable to sleep anymore. And at that point in time, at only that point in time, do you sacrifice 5 shillings to go to the river? If you pass Thika Road, somewhere just before Utali, below Utali, on the side of the NYS houses, you will see chokoras going to bathe over there. What you would then do, it was also a ritual. You carried a mkebe, a metal mkebe, with which you went to the river and you collected some pieces of tire along the way. You go set a fire of 3 stones, unaekelea yo mtungi, you put your clothes inside there, and you literally boil lice. I'm not shrubbing, I will repeat it. Boil lice.
Chawa.
Mwanaume mzima on God's good earth in your 30s, and this wasn't the life you were born into. You start to ask yourself questions at some point. I had witnessed how many guys had died on the streets. How many had gone to be buried in unmarked graves somewhere. And I didn't want that to be my end. Somehow I didn't. Somehow even though I was living that life, I felt I wanted to go out of this world in a different way. But what I was sure of is I was going to go out of this world. So I hatched a plan. I would go to my father's place and I would kill myself. Now, this is 1999. I've stayed in the streets over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Street life has become a life I don't want anymore. The only thought I have about my parents is that I go to their place and kill myself so that they may bury me. That's the only thought. I'm not thinking reconciliation. I'm not thinking about getting back together or anything. Somehow I feel my life is too wasted to ever get back into society. And so, one day, the guys we pick takataka from, these guys sometimes they give you a shirt or they give you some clothes. And one day a guy gave me some clothes. And like in normal times, these guys would give us clothes and you go and sell them, these new clothes you go and sell for some karobo quickly. You go and exchange for karobo quickly. But this time I went to the river, I bathed, put on these clothes and decided to go home to my father's house. Here's my mentality even by then. Had I even had the fare?
You'd have drunk it first.
No. My mental state was such that I could not even have entered a matatu.
Oh, because of how you feel about yourself.
You have been perceived by people. People have put you down there. Back even in your own mind, you've put yourself down there. You can't enter a matatu. But anyway, I didn't have the fare. I just had the clothes. So I started walking. My father at that time had a house here on George Padmore Road, Kilimani. And I walked from those sides of below Tali up or the river. I come to George Padmore Road. Other places still there. I haven't been home in 10 years. 10 years. No communication, no nothing. Maybe in those 10 years, there might have in the early years, maybe like a hello somewhere. But it's been 10 years since I was home. But my father still lives in the same place. I go knock on the gate. Watchman opens. Of course, he doesn't know me. I just ask him whether Musa Kilanga is there. Musa Kilanga is my kid brother. He tells me, I say, I'll go tell him he's got a guest at the gate. He goes in. I wait at the gate. It's been 10 years. And suddenly this huge guy with sideburns Nalini walks out of the gate. And for a moment, I can't even recognize my kid brother. I had left him as a Toto. It was about 9 when I left. So, walk over. And we kind of, I can recognize him, but he has a harder time recognizing me. But we reintroduce ourselves and we are brothers. Kidogo, even though time has passed, tunapatakujuana, tunafurahiana, and he tells me father is in the house. I'm not prepared to see my father at this time. So, tell him, look, let's take a walk. Let's catch up kwanza. So we take a walk. And now I want to know about, so how's the family doing? He tells me just like my father, he was going to be a pilot. He's done his private pilot's license. In the next 2 months, he's going to the States to do his commercial pilot's license. That is the last born. We are only 3 in our family.
That's a kid, bro.
That's my kid, bro. I asked him about my kid sister. He tells me, Rita went to America. She went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, got her degree, got married in the States, and she is living there. And here's the first one, Solomon, the most pampered of the lot. And I'm a street man. At that point, there is no way you're coming back into society, my friend. Your siblings have moved on. Your younger siblings are successful. What are you but trash? Even the people who call you trash in the streets, they are right. You are a nothing. So I continue with my plan. I can't tell my brother that I live in the streets. So I just tell him I'm experiencing temporary financial problems and I'm living in a slum for the time being. However, I will be able to get out of the slum, but currently there's a rat infestation in the place. I need his help to buy some rat poison, which I'll exterminate the rodents when I get home. And he says, okay, it just sounds all innocent and everything. And we walk to Adam's Arcade, and we buy the rat poison. When I was buying the rat poison, this is a brand called Red Cat. At that time, I had seen a guy in the streets consume 2 sachets. You see, in the streets, sometimes guys just give up the will to live and they will take their own lives. One day, a guy in the streets had just said, instead of drinking today, me, I'm buying rat poison. He had bought Red Cat, 2 packets. He had kunywa as we watched. And in the morning, he was dead. So me, I was sure if I drink 4,
For sure.
I will die there. I will collapse there. So when we got these 4, we walked around, talked some more. In the evening, we came back towards home, and I sent him to get me something from the house. So he went in, and it's about 7 o'clock in the evening. And there's a kiosk near the place. So I asked for some water to drink. I get the cup of water, I move kando, I kata off the 4 sachets of Red Cat, mix it, and koroga it vizuri. When my bro comes back, now I know I'm going to die. And these guys are going to bury me. And somehow that seems to give me some satisfaction. That's my life. Let it end this way. At least this way I have a decent burial. That's all that's going on in my mind. And my bro comes back. I throw him the 4 sachets. I drink, first of all, the concoction. And then throw him the 4 empty sachets. And I tell him, bury me. My bro runs back to the house and he comes back with the cook and with the watchman. And they come with a jug of milk. They try to force me to drink it. In the process, the jug falls and breaks and we start having a fight and my brother really gets angry and starts shouting at me and stuff. But here's the thing. I expected as soon as I drink Amani, I would collapse. Because that's what happens in the movies, Bana, not in real life. I'll tell you, my bro came back. They tried to force that milk. I am fighting with them here and I'm feeling no effect yet. You know, at a certain point, waka unajiuliza, kwani have I drunk Chinese stuff?
Wow.
Because it seemed like this wasn't going the way it was supposed to go. And suddenly my brother is so mad and he's shouting at me and telling me never to come anywhere near him and to have nothing to do with them. And there is no effect I'm feeling. And now even that last bridge, the last possibility I ever had at coming back to normal life, I have come, rebuilt it with my brother and immediately burnt it. Confused, I just took off. Then I started walking, running towards sides of Adams because just going towards sides of Ngong Road because now I didn't even know now what. I have drunk the poison. Imekataa kufanya. Now what? I collapsed. When I was crossing Ngong Road, I collapsed on the, there used to be a roundabout at Adams Arcade.
Yes.
Basically roundabout Kitambo.
Yeah.
I collapsed on that thing. And I blacked out. Now, I would have, I don't know, possibly, I don't know if there was any thought that went through my mind. But what I do know is that early next morning, I woke up in excruciating pain. A pain I have never felt before and would not want to feel again. First thing that came to my mind when I woke up was pure regret. I was alive. I hadn't died. Then the second thing is the pain, and the pain was plenty. And I knew I haven't died, but I want no part of this pain. I have to seek help. Must have been before 6 in the morning. So I half crawled, half walked, got off. That was 19th October. I remember that next day there was some holiday, and there's a Kenyan holiday on that day.
Yeah.
I half walked, half crawled towards the side of Winners, because at Woodley Estate,
Yeah.
there's a friend who used to be with in Apa Kitambo called Joshua Odera. Joshua Odera still had a house of sides. I knew, guys of Woodley wanachiagwa manyumba, wanachalia manyumba.
Generation after generation.
So I went and I get to their gate. It's not even light yet, and I knock on the gate. She comes out, takes one look at me. I've thrown up on myself. I've soiled myself. I look a total mess. He tells me to go away, and I tell him, just go in there. Tell Joshua Odera Solomon Kilanga is asking for him. If he doesn't know and doesn't want to come, sawa sawa. The only thing that changed the watchman's mind was the fact that I knew his boss's name. So he goes in, tells Joshua, and friendships formed in school run pretty deep. They can come to you in your time of need, because Joshua just came. I explained to him what the problem was. I explained to him what I had taken, and I blacked out. But Joshua took me to their servant quarters, carried me with the watchman, and Joshua never involved the police in this. He called another friend from days of school who was a doctor. And those guys attended to me for 3 weeks.
At Joshua's house?
At Joshua's house, in the servant quarters, for 3 weeks or so.
Wow.
Until I started feeling I was a bit better. But here is the problem now, Amani. And this is where I was now approaching rock bottom.
You haven't reached rock bottom?
I was approaching it.
You are quickly approaching it.
I am quickly approaching it. Now, I have been home. My siblings have moved on. They are doing well. Their older brother is a chokora. How can you? What could you ever say in their presence? How could you go back into their social circles? Impossible. That's your siblings. You've tried to commit suicide. And the people who have helped you are guys you were probably brighter than in school. One is a lawyer, one is a doctor. You're a chokora. Those are your peers. They have moved on. So your siblings have moved on. Your peers have moved on. Everybody has succeeded. Here is what demonstrates to you that you are the epitome of failure. Even the simple act of suicide has eluded you. You have failed even in that. You have failed even to commit suicide. You are at the bottom of everything. And all of us guys who are addicts down there, we know one thing. That at the end of everything, if all else fails, there is that option. I can end it all. But even that I have failed. What else is left for me? So Joshua, when I start getting better, they start trying to offer options. Maybe we can help. Maybe there's a saidiana even a vile. And I'm asking myself, he's a lawyer, this is a doctor. Are they going to make me messengers in their places of work, or what kind of help are they talking about? We are too socially distanced to try anything together. So when I'm feeling better, I asked Joshua to give me a little bus fare. He does. And I go back to Isili. He gave me about 1,000 bob or so. So go back to Isili to my 30 bob lodgings. I'm still feeling sick, so I'm not drinking as much. But of course, 1,000 bob is little. In a short time, I must have been in November of 1999. And in a short time, the money was gone. And by December of 1999, I was back in the streets. As guys spoke about, hyped about the millennium and etc., those were things I used to hear. Or things
Yeah,
I
there was a
saw.
thing called the Y2K bag.
Yeah, all those, yes, Y2K bag. But you see, a chokora is like a stone or the pavement or something. It's not a thing to people. People will pass by as they talk. If even a newspaper vendor, you go there to look at the newspapers and he chases you away like you can't read, like you know, nothing. But I was pretty aware of all those things, and January came. I have the luck or misfortune of being born very early in the year. On January 8th, the year 2000, I turned 34. At 34, you are a chokora. You live in the streets. You have no future. You have no hope. You have tried to commit suicide and have failed in that. You're on the street. What options are open for you? And I started in that, from the time I turned 34, I just started losing the will to live. By February of the year 2000, I knew that was rock bottom for me. That was now completely where that was rock bottom. And I began to have regrets about my life. And at that point, you start quitting the blame game that you've been blaming all things on all other people. And you start looking at your own role in your own tribulations. What were your contributions? As your tribulations mounted, you made a lot of contribution to it. And you start looking at those things. But it's too late. And there's nothing that can help you and nobody who can help you. You've just messed up too much. In February, I decided I've already tried suicide, so I'm not going to try again. I don't have the guts to. But I'm not going to take any active participation in the affairs of my life anymore. And so I stopped garbage collection. And every morning when we were fukuzwad by the watchman at 5:30, I went to the Karubo place and I lounged there the whole day. If somebody bought me alcohol, I drank. If somebody brought me that food that we got, I would eat. But I didn't want to play an active role in my life. And then in that February, at that point, where if things, I think God has you at a certain point where if something now happens positive in your life, you will never attribute it to anybody else but God. You cannot say that your friends or your family or anybody did this for you. Because at that point, in time, a fellow chokora who lived on the same street with me announced to us that he had gotten saved. He had found the Lord. And at first, we just dismissed him. This guy, he's a chokora. He's living in a sack on the same street with us. And the street community is just like a kawaida community. There are married guys, there are bachelors. What they aren't there.
Divorcees.
Single women are not there. Those are quickly snapped up. But bachelors are there. Now, Kamo was a married guy and he lived with his wife a few sacks down from me. And this guy actually says he's found Jesus. He's found a pastor who has told him God has a good plan upon his life. And we look at Kamo and we almost beat him because this is nonsensical. Can't Kamo see where he's living at? Can't Kamo see the circumstances around his life? But for me, I kind of thought that Kamo had smoked bangi for a very long time. It was his constant companion. And me, I thought, it's finally got to him. He's gone mad. It's eventually driven him crazy. But Kamau persisted. And he kept on telling me about God and God having good plans upon us and stuff. Kamau first quit cigarettes. I thought, okay, he's done well. Kamau quit alcohol. He would visit us in the Karubu places. He's not drinking. He said, okay. But Kamau hadn't quit Bangi. And because Kamau hadn't quit Bangi, and I knew that was his main problem, I knew, Basi, this guy, until the day he quits this, then maybe there might be something in what he's talking about. And one day Kamau quit Bangi. And when Kamau quit Bangi, I knew Kamau must have found something. And I wanted what this Kamau had found. Because Kamau also began, he had changed, And I started wanting, desiring whatever Kamau had found. But the problem was, Kamau would tell me it's about God, let's go see this pastor who spoke to him and etc. First of all, for me, the concept of God was something I couldn't even imagine. I mean, look, where is this all-loving, all-caring God when guys are living in the streets and, eating rubbish like we ate in the streets? When you live off other people's leftovers, when you collect garbage from their home so that, you can just keep body and soul together. Where is this God? So for me, the concept of God, when life was so cheap on the streets and the mistreatment that you see on the street, the humiliation, the deprivation, the degradation of street people, where would you imagine this God to be? So for me, the God issue wasn't working. Kamau, on the other hand, would insist if it's not that way, then there's no way he can help me, would be back to square one. This went on for some time, until the 26th of March, the year 2000. On the 26th of March, remember, this time is the time when I had given up active participation in my life. So the day before, somebody had come on the 25th, on a Saturday, and bought me plenty of Karubu. He had then left me 20 bob. So Sunday the 26th, and I really, let how God can orchestrate something. On the 26th of March, the year 2000, it was a Sunday, and woke up with my 20 bob, threw off my sack and rushed to a Karubu place. Of course, by 7:30 or so, I was drunk. And Kamau comes in around that 7:30 and tells me, look, let's go see this pastor. Let's just go talk to him. And that day, I just felt the need to just go and blast this pastor who had been preaching to Kamau all of this. Maybe because I wanted Kamau to stop bringing me this nonsense of his. Maybe there was some other curiosity in me, but I just felt the need. Fine, let's go and see this pastor. And actually the drink I had in my hand, I gave it back at the counter and asked them to hold it for me as I went to put this pastor in his place. And that was my first introduction to GLC, because I went to see the pastor and I found that this was a guy running a place. He was a church minister. He had identified that even though he's a church minister, he is a bishop of a church. He has churches, but nobody wants to be involved in the affairs of chokoras much, especially adult male chokoras. And so, out of his own pocket, he had one day, he used to feed them kidogo. And one day he had just asked one guy, way back in 96, wouldn't you like to change your life? And the guy had said, okay. So Bishop had housed him somewhere at a workshop he had. He took him in, he housed him, fed him the word of God, gave him a change of clothes, gave him a conducive environment for transformation, and the guy transformed. And so he had started taking in other guys. So I came in and I found there were a number of guys I knew from the streets were already there. But I wasn't buying into this. Man, I was still not bought onto this God.
Even if you've seen hope in front of you.
Let me tell you, as a mistake, I don't know how many other people make it like me, because for me, I could see there's hope. These are guys I used to see in the streets.
Yeah.
But the way it's coming, it's packaged wrong. There are issues of God here. There's issues of what this pastor has got to say. Things that to me are not things I can kubaliana with.
They're not acceptable.
They're not acceptable. This help is coming in the wrong way. But I called for the pastor. So after seeing these guys, the pastor was called. And Kwanzaa, he comes in. I'm not even overly impressed with this pastor. Short man with a wide smile. And I start blasting him. What are you feeding? Come on, what are these lies you are telling him? And he comes to disturb us in the streets. And that guy, just imagine, he just smiles and tells me, God has good plans for you. This infuriates me. I go into a screaming frenzy trying to get this guy irritated, because at the same time, I'm also trying to get him to get angry. It's like I want him to purposely get angry and throw me out so I can prove to Kamau this is just another guy.
Yeah.
And we walk off. But after I scream and shout, the guy just tells me, God has a good plan for you. Figured a place, I told him, look, okay, I can reason for myself, so I don't need reasoning from you, but I'm going to ask you questions. And if you can, that book that you refer to, that's the Bible, but then I didn't want an association.
Yeah.
That book you refer to, if it can answer my questions, I think I'll probably believe you.
Yeah.
And he knew his Bible. So I would ask him questions, and he refers to the particular chapter and verse that addresses this. And sooner I started seeing, just maybe this guy might have something. I was 34. I had begun drinking at 13. I passed through that, all the things that I had passed. That had been 21 years. 21 years, beginning with some very just social thing with a few peers, to ending up drinking it in the streets. In between some single fine malt whiskies to ending up in a place where you're drinking karobo, the scum of alcohol. From a pampered middle-class kid to the scum of the earth living in the street. That had been 22 years. And I asked him, can your God take alcohol away from me? And he says, yes. I ask him, so what do I have to do? He tells me, kneel down, we pray. I've never been infuriated with a guy like that before. And I feel this guy, how much of a simpleton is he? What is he talking about? Prayer. We pray. About 22 years I've been down this road and you're telling me a simple prayer can work for me. And I really was angered and I showed him, but he continued telling me, God has a good plan for you. Now, God can orchestrate something. And for me, I may have walked away. But once again, I noticed that among these guys who are living here now, these are ex-street guys, but now they are smart and etc. I noticed they were cooking tea with milk and bread. As in the street versus I had not partaken a delicacy like this for a long time. So me, in my mind, I just figured out, okay, let me wait for their prayers.
Then I have some tea.
Have some tea. I mean, they've already wasted enough of my time. I might as well make up for it with some tea.
Yeah.
So I could to be prayed for. And I knelt down and they prayed. And they laid hands on me. And they prayed till my knees ached. At one point, I wanted to discard the idea of the tea and just walk. And mercifully, the prayers came to an end. And I say, Simama brother, so you get up. And our guys are standing around you, welcoming you to the kingdom. You're wondering, what's wrong with these guys? What kingdom? You feel you felt nothing. Nothing kabisa you felt. But you are polite. So we had the tea, and once again, Kodoke streets. These guys, somebody says, hey, tumekuchemshia maji ya kuoga. Say, oh, okay. Some hot water and a change of clothes. And I had not bathed for years with hot water. So I agreed. I gave out my lice-infested clothes to go and be burnt. And I went and took a shower. Got some fresh change of clothes. And once again, the bishop, at that time I just thought he was a pastor. He tells me, okay, can we go to church with you? Now, I've gathered from conversation here that this guy has a church in Kayole. And in Kayole, I have drunk in the Soweto slums, many times. So I know my way around there. So even if he tells me, let's go to Kayole to church, I figure out it's okay. If I don't like the church, I'll dump him along those sides, go into Soweto, drink, and then I'll find my way back to Isili.
Yeah.
So I kubali. He gives me 20 bob, and he tells me, go and shave. I decide this 20 bob, what I'm going to do is just keeping it in my pocket. Pombe inaanza kushuka. So I decided I'll keep this 20 bob. When we come back, this is what I'll drink. We get in the car and we head. Kidogo, I get surprised. He doesn't take the road to Kayole. I see him taking Thika Road. We are soon passing Utalii where I used to bathe and heading towards Thika. When we pass the route of going into Thika town, I start wondering, what's this? And we go all the way to Kabati. Now, Kabati happens to have a church there. And Kabati is in Murang'a County, actually. And when we reach there, is when I realize this guy is not just a pastor. I can see there the other pastors treat him and etc. And then he's ushered to the front there. And me, I was taken to sit there at the back. And when his turn came to speak, he spoke. This was to be a turning point. I had, you know, the orchestrations of God. This was going to be the day my life would turn around. I had no idea of it. When he went to speak, he spoke about a guy who had been, where in his words he said, where the rubber meets the road. He spoke of a guy going through such problems, going through such pain, that Amani, I almost looked around the church to see who else he came with. I mean, I couldn't believe this is me he's talking about. The abnormal had become so normal to me that when I heard it spoken from somebody else, I didn't think that was my life. I didn't think that was me. Then eventually he calls me and tells me to give a testimony in front of the church. And I was angry. I was furious inside. I was fuming. This guy had just aibished me. He's just spoken about my life, things that I was even embarrassed hearing sitting back there. And then now he's asking me to stand in front of these guys and share my life with them. And I'm figuring out, if these guys just want storytelling, why don't they stand up and give me their stories? After all, kwani them, they don't have their issues. And I'm fuming inside and everything. But remember where I've come from. I've come from the street where nobody gives you anything for nothing. In the streets, you trust nobody. So, I don't know this pastor very well. And this is where logic had to kick in. What if I refuse to speak and he dumps me in Murang'a?
That's your fear.
That's my fear. And that was what produced my first ever testimony. That was what unlocked my first ever testimony. It is the testimony I use to help other people to change their lives, to help others get off the streets. But it is what was locked inside me, Amani, and would never have come out if we had gone to Kayole. And he told me to do this in front of the Kayole church congregation. I would have walked away.
Yeah.
I would have walked away and my story would have ended there. I don't think we would have ever met. I don't think I would have ever bothered with trying to help other guys come out of addictions or come out of the streets and things like that. But God so orchestrated it that I had to be out of town in a place where I couldn't find my way back. It was taken out of me. And you know what the amazing thing is? None of these things we don't talk about. When we find release and speak about them, they can not only help others, but they heal you.
They heal us, it's true.
When I started my testimony, that first one, 26 March, the year 2000, I began, of course, by telling guys in vernacular, because I was mostly a vernacular crowd, and I started by saying the words, when I came out of my sack this morning. And then I saw the guys look at me in a funny way, and I realized that they didn't come out of sacks. These people came out of beds. I started realizing just how abnormal my life had become. By the middle of that, of telling my story, Amani, for me, there was no altar call. There was no da-da-da-da, there was nothing. I just felt a certainty that I would never drink again. I knew, not thought, not hoped. I knew 100% I would never drink again. I just knew. And we finished. And we left Kabati. And we came back to Isili. Of course, on the way back in the car, a million thoughts are going through your mind. Are you sure you can stop alcohol? How are you going to survive outside in the streets and etc.? But when we got to Isili, the bishop offered me to stay at the center and turn my life around. And I stayed. And shortly, borrowed 500 shillings from him, bought some trinkets, just some small chains and mirrors, so that I could start going around Isili, hawking those small items, just so that I could learn to trust myself again. The business didn't bring more than 30 shillings a day, but I was able to know that I can keep 10, 20 shillings in my pocket without going to drink. Whereas before I would have sold the shirt of my back to get a tin of karobo. Now I could have 20, 30 shillings in my pocket and not go to drink. And for me that was victory. I went out to the streets and called out those who were in the streets and told them about what God can do for somebody. And those who joined me. And from that time, I began to work with the bishop. He's called Bishop Absalom Dungo. We began to work with him in helping other guys come off the streets. That's how I began work in this ministry. I'll tell you, God is a God of wonders. In 5 years, I came out in the year 2026 March. By 2006 there, I had, first I'll just give you the highlights. Maybe I could take you through the step by step at another time. I'll just give you that in 5-6 years, I had married.
Wow.
I had bought land.
Wow.
I had built a house. I had a car. I had children.
What?
I had And by 2006, Musho, I was now heading a company called Tidman Globe. It's an American company based in Arizona. I was their agent here. They are in the used drugs industry. The used drugs, unajua, they're the same guys who part of their product is Mtumba. So I was supplying Mtumba for them to a few African countries.
Wow.
In 6 years, I was now flying around taking Mtumba hapa na pale. I had made it back. I had made it back financially. And all seemed well. As in 6 years.
That's a miracle.
That's a miracle. So God, there is nothing. Part of the step by step. I have a book. I've published a book.
What's the name of your book?
The book is called Chokora. My Life as an Addict.
How can we find this book?
Now, in fact, I wish to deliver to you a number of copies. Those who get in touch with you, you have my contacts because I don't have them in the bookshops or something.
Okay.
I've just been printing them and distributing them.
Send me a bunch. We're gonna sell them here.
Send you a bunch, and you could sell them right from here.
Yeah, we'll sell them right from here.
Yes. So now, there is that. But here's the thing, Amani. This is what I want us to really, really, really critically look at. Because you have watched my trajectory. You have watched me from a middle-class guy right up at the top and come crashing down. You've seen me hit rock bottom. And it's a story I tell guys, and guys look at me like in amazement. Like, if you ever hit this place, it will not be understandable how you could ever relapse. Here, I have again risen. I now have a family.
Yeah.
I have kids. I have a responsible job. I'm making a lot of money once again.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. At this point, when I got out of addiction, I never dealt with any underlying issues. As well to speak to addicts. I want to speak to anybody who's gone through this thing, and even to their caregivers who wonder, why is it a person goes to rehabilitation, comes out, seems to succeed, goes back into that cycle over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? There is something simple. You just never dealt with what your underlying issues are. You're just not dealing with the root cause. You're just not dealing with what it is that sababisha you to start that thing in the first place. You are going to a rehab and cutting off the branches. The root remains, and once you come out and you face some tough situations, you find yourself back in the cycle.
What was yours?
7 years, my friend. 7 years from the year 2000 to the year 2007, everybody looked at me like a success story. I was going up in the world. I was a perfect Christian. I said amens and hallelujahs, and I was present in church. And the first, say, 6 years, I didn't notice because I was too busy. Success equaled making enough money. Remember, I had been deprived. But I've also enjoyed a good childhood in my youth. So I want to give that to my children, and I want to make that. So the first 6 years were basically spent looking and making the money.
Yeah.
But by the year 2006, I had that. The money wasn't a problem anymore. And now that you have a little bit of time to think things, and the issues that sumbua you are still there. You're still a Christian.
Oh, what are those issues
But you are the Christian, and I'm going to get to that. But you are those Christians who are spoken of in the book of Timothy, who have a form of godliness, but deny the power therein. To you, there are sins that can't be forgiven. To you, there are people you can't forgive. No matter that the Bible says forgive, so you'll be forgiven. To you, there are situations you will never forgive. You keep on carrying that mzigo, and that mzigo keeps on working on you and messing you and messing you up. In the year 2007, at the height of my career, I began to drink once again. And I'll tell you the years 2000, because I started drinking at the end of 2007. Within 2, 3, 4 weeks of drinking, I quit my job. And shortly after, kicked out my family and decided kukunywa. You know where the Bible speaks Amani, it says that when the devil has been kicked out, he usually comes back to check if his house has been occupied, and if he finds it unoccupied, he goes and comes back with 7
demons. Yeah.
Mimi yangu nafikiri alienda akakuja na 14. My life 2008 2009 was lived like the life of a madman. I won't dwell too much into it, but it was more or less the life of a madman. I was not in the streets, but I was almost going crazy. The things I did, I looked mad. And this time, nobody could even understand how could you have gone up that way and then you come crashing down like this. And God is good. That at the end of, I don't dwell too much on that chapter, but at the end of 2009, having tried to get back into rehab for over 10 times, I was able to finally get in and make a commitment back to the same rehabilitation center that I now run, GLC. I was able to now walk in, make a commitment, and make up my mind that I would serve God. I would sort out my issues, including the underlying issues that had led me back. Because by then I knew what my problems were. So 2010, I was back in GLC. We continued to work with the bishop, but this time I went in search of answers to my own issues. And I will take you a little bit back because I know I will give you an example with my issues, just 1 or 2. Because I know each of us out there are probably trying to figure out what is it that is underlying for you. Some might be so deep in your subconscious you don't even realize it until you start talking about it and then it starts coming out. But for me, I'll tell you some of the issues I had. And for this, Amani, I'll ask you to allow me to go right back because we started out in Consolata Primary. And Consolata Primary, as you mentioned, with a handful of black kids and stuff like that, must have been a classy environment, na kila kitu. Looks very privileged, right? I was at the age of about maybe 7 years old or so. Now, kindly let's go back to between 0 to 7 years old. And that is where many of my problems that manifested later in adulthood began. Sometimes you may be listening to my story, you might start looking what happened in my 20s, nini. But after being with counselors now for some time, I come to realize that most of my problems began in the 0 to 7 years. Let me tell you my story, hapo mbele. I was born in the village, Hapa Kabete, a place called Kingero, to a 14-year-old girl. I was born January 8th, 1966. By 15th of January, she had gone to secondary. As barely a week later. I grew up knowing my grandmother was my mother.
Wow.
And I grew up, I think that was the happiest period of my life, Amani. Just running up and down, sliding down every muddy slope in the village, going to the river to bathe, metengenaza fair, you go to hunt birds and that kind of thing. Life was peaceful, life was blissful. There were no worries. We were poor. My grandmother lived in a mud house. But which kid knows they are poor? It's only society that points out to people that they are poor. When you're a kid, you don't realize. You're just a happy kid who feels loved and appreciated, and I felt loved. And so, that was my early life. I went by one single name, Gitau. And I remember early nursery school, Kawuden nursery school there in the village. We just sang ABCD and drank porridge and slept. I know it was great. And then just as I entered standard 1 in the local ACK primary school there, my life began to change. Now, this was about 6 years old or so. I remember from the time my mother gave birth and went away, she also built her life. She went on and completed her 4th form. She was a beautiful woman. She got employed as an air hostess on the East African Airways. East African Airways is where she met Captain Abubakar Kilanga, and they decided to get married. The most I knew about this woman was that Nduta, her name is Nduta. The most I knew about her was probably my elder sister or something. So, I've just started off standard 1 pale in the local primary school there. Those days there was no English. Even if you learn an English word, it is interpreted for you into your mother tongue, so that you can understand it. And so kidogo we are informed Duta is getting married. That's good. And in fact, next time I come, I will bring you a photograph of me at that wedding.
At the wedding?
Yeah. And I'm right there. I'm a page boy at the wedding. I'm there. I have photographs of me in a nice shirt and tie. And I have no idea this woman is my mother.
Wow.
And they get married and they go. A few weeks later, she comes to the village with her new husband. And for the first time, I am informed, this is your mother, and you are going to live with her. Now, I don't know if you can imagine what goes on in the mind of a 6-year-old kid, because all your security, the serenity of the village, everything is destroyed in that one instance. Kicking and screaming, I was dragged from the village. And that is when I was brought to what is today 87 Raptor Road. That was where the East African Airways Missionette used to be. It's a circular compound consisting of about 9 or so houses, and all the back windows face towards one common field. About 3 black families. I think 2 black families and an Asian family. Everybody else was white. Now, one of the most amazing things I remember is standing at the back window gazing. First of all, the shock that there was a tree house. I mean, this is something I never even imagined the village. There were a lot of trees, but nobody ever thought you could build a tree up there. But all these white kids who were there playing. You know, in the village, you're all the same color. There are no white people. Where have you ever come across white people? And this is your first interaction with white guys. You would like to go out and play with them as a child. But you have your limitations. You don't know the language. So all you can do is just sit at the back window and stare out and avoid them. That was one. 2, you have been brought by your mother and you know, in the village, you just, sometimes you wash your hands, sometimes you don't, and you just sit and eat whatever is proffered before you. But here, your mother wants you to learn etiquette. You can't get seated with a new husband here. You don't know how to use a fork and knife and stuff like that. So the first port of call is you sit in the kitchen and there's a maid and a cook to teach you social etiquette, to teach you the placement of cutlery and stuff like that. And all you feel is like a monkey being made to perform tricks. And my hate began there. I've been picked from my home in the village. I'd been brought here to perform useless tricks. Kidogo. From there, You're taken to Nairobi Primary School. I was taken to Consolata Primary School first. I've gone to Consolata. I told you I don't have any knowledge of the English
language.
Those days, there was just a handful of black kids, and the subordinate staff were black. You go to this school, you look around you can't hear what these people are saying. The white kids you can avoid at home. I mean, you can stay in the house. But now here you can't avoid anybody because you're in school with them. And so anytime a white kid laughs, facing in your direction, you imagine it's you. And very quickly I learned that, after taking this for some time, I started becoming angry inside. And one day I punched a white kid. Guy turned red and fled in tears. And I knew this is the answer. This is how to handle these guys. And from there I became a violent kid. Of course, not all the kids were weak. I mean, some beat me properly. But you see, at least you start gaining some grudging respect from these kids. So you use that as like a respect builder, and as a way to make you feel okay, as even as you're trying to learn the English language. At home, so this is school. Remember, at Apashule, I didn't even have another name. You know me, I always felt like, a second thought.
Because you only had Gitau.
I had only, yes. But the time when we came to be registered at Consolata, it was just like a story of when we had the registration there. When my mother, I think even her, realized this one name can't just be put. And she told me, you are Solomon.
Oh, so it was not in your original birth certificate? It was not?
No, those things came baadaye. Me, in fact, those things came later. My dad adopted me. Those names were added, stuff like that. But by that time, I was simply known as Gitau. It was like I was like an afterthought. Because even when we went, usually you are taking a child to school, and umefika pale, unakumbusha, okay, you are called Gitau now. I mean, you're called Solomon. So even in school, kids are calling you Solomon. You're not even sure who they are addressing, but you are still having issues with that. But then again, my stepfather was Muslim. His full name, and by the way, we're very good friends now. But that wasn't the case then. He's called Abu Bakr Kilanga. And being Muslim, he's married my mother, and he would like me also to practice Islam. So, it's made known to the school authorities. Remember, Consolata is a shule that has even got a Friday Mass for students.
It's a Catholic school.
It's Catholic. So there's even Friday Mass.
Yeah.
So CRE lessons, now you are taken out of CRE lessons and you are taken out even of Friday Mass. Because you are Muslim. But you are sitting outside there with Muslim boys who are asking you, you are called Solomon. So where are you Muslim? You can't explain to them, leave alone explain to yourself what all this Islam stuff is about. And all I knew was hate. My world was just a confused world. And all I knew was hate. And I blamed everything on my mother. One thing I saw is that I would learn the English language so well that nobody would ever laugh at me for my incapability to communicate in it. And I did. But the hate began growing there. The anger began there. And when you go at the same time, remember, I'm not yet 7 years old. At the same time, my grandmother, remember, was the person I loved most in my life. Now, she's given me to my mother. But you go back to the village, and every time she's on my case, let me say this in Kikuyu, and then I will translate.
Okay, just say it.
Her biggest question was, "Dutadagyo na mudo getiga mujaru." You know, these people, today it might sound tribalistic, but this, you see, to them, it means, can can edit it, but to her, she's a Kikuyu. Those deep Kikuyus, and say, Duta, my mother now, can't find anything else other than a Luo. To them, it was offensive for their daughters to go to another tribe other than the Kikuyu. And she's saying this, and at the same time, all the time she keeps on telling me, this guy, once he has his own children, he will finish you. So you are caught between your grandmother,
your mother,
telling you so much bad about this. Your mother is telling you bad about your grandmother. You are in between here trying to please a new father. You're in a new school. You are trying to learn language, but at the same time, you're not sure your religious identity. You are confused about. My hit began there, man. Might be a lot of other instances later on that continued happening. But it began there. Because all the other things that happened, so many other things have happened. And so many things kept on bringing that. In 2010, I started the services of a counselor. And somebody started with somebody who, could help me just to get an overview, talk about my life. I never used to talk about things. I could talk about the story of the streets. That was okay. But about the very personal things that touch on me.
0 to 7, that is core.
Yeah.
That's at the very core.
Yeah. So I began to talk about it. And I began to be helped to see. It took me all of up till 2017 to be able to sit in my mother's chair and ask myself, who am I to judge her for getting pregnant at 14? I can't really know what circumstances contributed to that. But here's the fact. My mother did a lot of things, but some I just hated her outright for, without reasoning. For example, she married Kilanga. He wasn't Kikuyu, and so there was all that condemnation from my grandmother and etc. It's not necessarily that even her, she probably liked it, but she married this guy to give me a name. So she probably did this for me. And I could and I could stop condemning her. No Kikuyu man would have given me a name, not in those days.
Yeah.
I live right now. Kikuyu man, adopting a Kikuyu male child, it's like this thing has clothes.
I hear you, because I'm one of those whose father.
Yeah.
I don't have a surname. And because not that he refused to give me his name.
Yes.
I probably refused to take it.
Yes.
But I have a Kikuyu stepfather. His name is Maura. I named my son after him. And it's a story I've told in other places how that was the moment I sort of chose my dad.
Yeah.
I chose who my dad was because I named my son after him.
Yes.
But I understand it when you have no identity.
Yes. So she married Kilanga. He may give me a name. He adopted me. I said, by the way, my son is called Kilanga.
Wow.
I have named my son after him.
Wow.
I have a biological father called Muriuki. That doesn't figure anywhere. I just know that's a fact. But my stepfather is called Abubakar Kilanga. I've named my son Kilanga.
Wow.
So she married him so that I get a name. She also married him so that when she took me from the village and tossed me into Consolata, I felt very bad about that. But here, what was she to do? She wanted the best for her child.
She was creating opportunity for you.
She was creating opportunity. When I felt like a useless, like a monkey being taught useless tricks, those skills have served me well in other places. So basically, I could now sit and start seeing the sacrifices my mother made for me and stop just blaming her for everything that went wrong and stop attaching every mistake that I make to her because of if she had not, and I could start facing what are my roles in this. And first of all, when I was able to do that, I can tell you, I lifted a major weight off my shoulders. I forgave my mother. All I regret is that she died in 2002. It took me up to about 2017 to get it all figured out. Just 3 years ago, I was able to really figure it out, and I regret that. But the thing is, that's what I was talking about, addressing some
underlying
issues, because there are underlying issues. So what we do is we have our program.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just say, I've never recorded a podcast like this before. I have not spoken for all of 10 minutes on this pod, and this is episode 2 of this conversation. We're already an hour and a half in. And that's an incredible story, Solomon.
Awesome.
I cannot thank you enough for sharing this story. I don't know what to say. I have a lot to process, but I'll also tell you this, that part of the story, in fact, this last part of the story you've shared is for me. It's for me to figure out some of my own stuff that I need to figure out.
Yep.
You're working for GLC now, which is Global...
Now, Greater Life
Concern.
Greater Life Concern is the same ministry the bishop started, eh? Now, understand that way back, starting something like this in 1996, nobody would have joined you on board.
Yeah.
So we just helped him where we could. But in 2018, the bishop passed on.
Oh, no.
When he passed on, some of us who, like me, who had passed through that, and, the bishop's son also, a guy called Pastor John Dungo, and some other people felt that we could not let this work just disappear. It has helped hundreds, if not thousands of men. And so we called together some friends, and we decided we would tackle the legal issues to make this a thing more public, get a board and things like that, bring a lot of people on board to help us in this cause. And that is what we did. So now GLC is just run by a board of well-wishers and guys. I am the CEO. I'm the guy tasked with the day-to-day running, the coordination of everything. But I have a board that helps me. And I am also hopeful that guys like you will visit, see where you can fit in. Because we invite everyone to come in. This is an initiative for men. If it's been able to help you, I swear it's maybe been able to help somebody else out there. Walk in and see what hope, support you can offer to this program.
I don't know if you've heard this story, but this is a story of a man who has walked the entire spectrum of growing up in the village, living a middle-class lifestyle, going to live in the streets. First, there's the streets and then there's a lodging where you share a bed. And back to fix his life and his story, and not just that, helping other men right now. Men that you would ordinarily not look at, men that you will never give a chance because, like he said, no one gives a street man an ear. Street woman will be listened to.
Yes.
Street child will be listened to. But street man is a source of fear, is a threat. And he was one of them.
Yep.
And he's saying today what you're doing is rehabilitating, rescuing those people.
Yes.
And reconciling them back with their families.
Reconciling them with their families, and I'll be glad to share with you some clips of some members of families when they come for.
Bring them. I will throw them through my social media. Everyone in Nairobi is going to see them.
And you can see that because what we do is we work on 4 R's. The first R is the rescue, move from the physical environment. The second R is the rehabilitation through the Word of God. The third R is reconciliation to God and to man. It's always easier with God. God is always waiting. But with relatives, sometimes...
No, we're not ready. We're not ready.
You're not, relatives are sometimes not ready.
Yeah.
But so what we do is form a community of support so that such a person can have others who understand him and can support him.
Yeah.
And then we reintegrate them back to the community. Because many of our guys are from the streets. We don't do a 90-day program and tell a guy, Kwaheri, you are clean. No. We try to find work for the person while he's there. We have a halfway house program where the person works while still living at the center until they are able to put together a bit of resources, purchase a bed, a stove, or move into a place of their own. And now, even if they reconcile with their people, it makes the reconciliation easier. Because one thing, and this is the economic reality, a guy who comes from the street, he's clean, he doesn't do drugs, even physically he's clean. If he goes back to his relatives without a shilling in his pocket or a way to make a living, in a very short time the honeymoon is over and they've fallen out. He'll go back to the street. But if he goes with a source of income, with a way that he's able to add a shilling to their collective income, he will be welcomed. And that is what we try to ensure.
Solomon, tell me, how can we support you?
Well, as I said, this ministry is run really on the efforts of well-wishers. We have a residential facility, so there is rent. We have staff who we employ down there to run day-to-day things there. We are hardly able to pay most of these staff members. There are many bills that we need to settle. So I can give you I have an MCHANGA paybill number.
Okay.
The paybill number is 891300.
Okay.
The account is GLC.
All right.
If you would wish to contribute into that will help us. That will go a long way.
Okay.
But we'd also want to invite anybody who is within Nairobi. Get in touch with me. My telephone number is 0715 874 094. I would like to invite you to the center. You can see for yourself how you are able to plug in as God helps you. Because some people can offer training. Some people can offer counseling. Some people can offer... there's a wide variety of things you can offer. But even if not that, even to come and sit with people and encourage them. Just one day in a very long time. Make it even a one-time event. Just come and sit with people. Humanize them. Make them feel they are part of society. That greatly helps. If you have clothes, always in need of clothes. Remember when I talked about when I came out of the streets and I can remember, it's been 20 years. I can remember, I have bought many clothes along the way, but I still remember the first grey trouser, green pair of slippers, a white shirt, kwanza zile za cufflinks, na haikuwa na cufflinks kwa hivyo mikono ilikuwa mirefu. But those clothes made me feel human. To somebody else, they might have been something they wanted to use as a duster. They just thrown it at the back of the closet. I appeal to you today. If you have clothes, kindly bring them over. And I'm sure through Amani, I can be able to, even if you are to contact Amani, we can be able to set up how we can all work together. You could take a look you could also write to me on sgitauk@gmail.com. And you can take a look at our website, greaterlifeconcernmean.org.
So the Greater Life Concern mean MIN.
MIN, yeah. For Greater Life Concern
Ministry. Okay.
So it's greaterlifeconcernmean.org. That's ours. It's still being developed, but you'll get some information there.
I'm going to put all this information on an Instagram post, and I'm going to put them on the show notes of this episode. But Solomon, I am so grateful that you've chosen to share your story with me. You said it earlier, 2 of our friends insisted that we meet.
Oh, yeah. That's a very funny thing, because a big shout out to Amboi Serere wherever she is, because Amboi Serere insisted in June last year.
Wow.
Oh, and I even have the note to go and meet Amani. Amani is a friend of mine. Go and talk this story with him. Things came up. And then Tony came along and said, no, go and meet Amani. And here we are.
God works in mysterious ways, man.
God's own time.
We have to close this session, and I don't know how to close it. You've had his appeal. Plug in. And I want to say, I know the guys who listen to this podcast have places and issues that we already plugged in and are concerned about. But I've not had a more moving story in a long time. And so please, let's change the lives of this man. God bless you. Thank you, Bwana Gitau.
Karibu sana.
You're gonna live here with some clothes because I now know what to do with them. Yes. So if it's what I have right now. I wish I had more.
Asante sana.
But thank you.
Tutashukuru.
I appreciate it. God bless you.